A short, let me to present a short introduction in our subject, cultural diplomacy. Cultural diplomacy, peace and progress through understanding dialogue. Why do you need cultural diplomacy? This new concept is the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy in Berlin, University of Bucharest, and recently National School of Political Studies and Public Administration. It tries to promote with so much passion and engagement. My answer is because the world is changing. And if the world is changing, politics, in its higher meaning of serving the community interest, must change too. The famous German strategist, Clausewitz, considered that war is a continuation of politics with other means. I believe that peace can also be a result of politics obtained through other means. One of these means is cultural diplomacy, which without intending to replace the traditional diplomacy of dialogue between parties having different interests, supported through different type of pressure and force threats, can complement it with a new element. Dialogue based on understanding the other part and, in a wider meaning, a better understanding of the world we live in. Not understanding the other's motivation led during history to many wrong decisions in foreign policy, triggering conflicts or wars. This is why the common values objectives seem to me so important today within the new structure of foreign relations. Preventing conflict or managing post-conflict situations require a comprehensive, balanced vision which takes into consideration the interests of various ethnic and religious communities, the rights and obligations of independent state citizens, the conjunctural and long-term interests of the regional actors. This vision cannot be developed without the involvement of representatives able to understand and express the plurality of voices, questions, and desires of millions of people. This is why political structures should be supplemented by civil society structures dedicated to world security issues. Only such a process of consolidated respect for human beings, democracy, and common security may reach the depth which only people's through will can guarantee. The preventive vocation will be the keystone of diplomacy in the future. This involves raising complexity of the analysis and action ways. The repetitive crises have shown that, unfortunately, punctual preventive interventions are not enough and should be inserted in a complex of long-term actions which need to take into account the overall aspect of some regions and the overall aspects of the problem that might destabilize them, from economic difficulties to the stereotypes anchored in divergent mentalities, from poor communication channels to unconventional risk for security. Cultural diplomacy could function as a laboratory where the political culture of global security, through mutual trust, negotiation, and cooperation, is created. It can identify major risks, could elaborate and implement programs of cooperation, both inside countries with high conflict risk as well as in areas with a conflict potential. In my opinion, the first step of the cultural diplomacy would be to make conceptual map of the international political universe. On it we could draw the different worlds populating our planet, the postmodern, the modern, and the pre-modern ones. Only on such a foundation we can build politics and security strategies proper for a fast-changing and contradictory world. Diplomacy, in its traditional sense, as well as cultural diplomacy, no longer exclusively represent an instrument for forwarding foreign policy interests, but it used as platform for promoting international cooperation and partnership among diverse, independent international non-governmental actors. Cultural diplomacy, therefore, implies a twofold action intended not only to create a cultural presence, but also to create a framework for the other person or nation to recognize this presence, to achieve an understanding that transcends stereotypes. A great conversation of mankind should now be encouraged, where wider groups of people will engage in the process of the free flow of ideas and knowledge throughout the world. Cultural agencies such as British Council, Goethe Institute, or Romanian Cultural Institute would not only promote the language and cultural heritage of the country they represent, but also seek to become a kind of dialogue facilitator, a vehicle of communication for values and traditions between national communities, which in turn will stimulate true mutual understanding and development. The greatest contribution of the cultural diplomacy at the world's architecture of security will be the prevention of wars, which will not happen anymore, mainly as a result of the creation of democratic mechanisms based on dialogue and collaboration with the civil society. International politics, as well as classic diplomacy, were built on power and force relations and will continue to be a long time from now on. The concept of soft power is far from being functional. Cultural diplomacy is still in its infant stage. I want to be well understood. I do not plead for replacing classic diplomacy with a cultural one. It would mean for me to encourage a dangerous utopia. I plead, though, for a combination of them. From my experience gained as a scientist, as a man of culture, and as a statesman, I can say that cultural diplomacy is the same relation with a classic diplomacy as is a non-Euclidean geometry with the Euclidean geometry, the relativistic physics with the Newtonian physics, the principle of including third party with the principle of excluding third party of the Aristotelian logic, the modernism with the classicism in literature, music, art, and so on. Cultural diplomacy is aiming at targets farther than settling open conflicts or management of frozen conflicts. It aims to create a culture of peace which can ensure a sustainable global security. To achieve this goal, we need a complex system of higher education in the field of cultural diplomacy. Academy for Cultural Diplomacy in Berlin, in collaboration with the University of Bucharest, University of Babeș-Bolyai in Cluj, University of Siena in Italy, and the University of Furtwangen in Germany, have succeeded for the first time to build an integrated system of higher education with degrees of master and PhD in cultural diplomacy. Within this framework, we are creating not only skills, but also new consciousness and attitudes that arise from the direct relationship between young people who are preparing to face the challenges of the future. And it's a moment now to present you, and I'm very happy for the presence here of 30 students engaged in the Master in Globalization and Cultural Diplomacy, organized by Institute of Cultural Diplomacy in cooperation with Siena University from Italy. You are welcome here at our conference. Dear friends, the difficult process of forming a new culture of peace cannot be limited only to higher education. It must start with family education, elementary school, and high school. The culture of peace does not only need martyrs of peace, such as Gandhi, that were assassinated because of his tolerant policy, but heroes of peace as well. Unfortunately, for more than 5,000 years, each generation has had as models the heroes of war. The Nobel Peace Prize laureates, Mandela and Mother Teresa, remain isolated cases in the Hall of Fame, occupied by the Lord of Wearers. Since early childhood and until old age, literature, art, theater, film, and more recently television and the internet spread in overwhelming proportions violence, glorify physical force, give mass market appeal to killing tools and techniques. The conference in which we participate today aims not only to publicize our achievement in higher education for cultural diplomacy, but also to propose public authorities and civil society a joint construction. I would like to express my gratitude to senior representatives of government and academic institutions that have responded positively to our invitation, and I am confident that the discussion that will follow will strengthen this cooperation. Dear fellow participants, if we desire a world of peace, we should build it, fight for it, and we should not be overwhelmed by the fear of some evil considered inevitable. If globalization cannot be avoided, then it should be molded. We shall survive in this still divided world, not through what we possess, but through who we are. Thank you.